control the controllables, deal with what you can do, deal with the situation that we live in, not the one that we want to live in.
He said, why do you call it blockers? What I said was, what do you think they should be called? It's not about perfection, it's about reflection.
Inspire Instructor Training Podcast, where the learning never stops.
Welcome to the Inspire Instructor Training Podcast, and this is our first ever live podcast. We're recording this live on Facebook. If you are listening to this on the podcast feed and you want to come and watch these live, then you will have to join the membership because they're in the members group. I'm sure we will do the odd one to everyone, but these are a tag on to our live Q&As that we normally do on a Monday, and we've decided to turn them into the podcast recording to kill two birds with one stone, basically. And we thought it'd be fun for our members to be able to interact while we record the podcast as well. But anyway, I suppose I should welcome Diana to the podcast. Hello.
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 I think it's more like a video cast, isn't it?
Yeah, well, not if you're listening to it later.
True.
It'll be
Very
a podcast. We always record it where we can see each other anyway, and it always goes out on YouTube if you prefer videos. I remember Sally getting very excited that she didn't know that we put it out on videos. So yeah, so it does go out on video as well. So first of all, we'll start off with a little bit of news. So I haven't prepped you for this, so I will do it. But we are going to do a workshop this year again. We've slightly tweaked.
No, I'm joking.
I was like, I've booked the venue, so we're definitely going for it. Yes, so however, we are only going to be doing one workshop this year. So if you want to come and see us this year, you want your yearly dose of Inspire CPD, then come and join us. Yes, you may have to travel a little bit, but it won't kill you. So come and join us. We picked somewhere central that most people can get to. This is why you should do it. So it will be on Sunday, the 20th of July, 9:30 till probably roughly 4:30, 5 o'clock. We've yet ever to finish early, so because we're always stuffing in the information. It's £120 for the workshop. You can get discount for booking as groups, so get your friends and come and join, and then you've got your car trip as well.
So you
come
won't
join.
die.
And you won't, yeah, and you absolutely won't kill you. So yeah, because you'll be all experienced driving instructors.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, come and it's the same workshop as we did last year with a few tweaks to it, because we love to tweak and tune these things in. Yeah, so come and see us on the 20th of July. And get your yearly dose of CPD from us.
Yeah, we chose to do it on a Sunday, didn't we? Because actually it means that you don't need to sort of rejig any of your pupils. And we just found that travelling all around was just such a big commitment with young families as well. And we know that that's the case for you guys as well. So that's why we thought we'd do one central workshop so that... you know, again, it's all about work-life balance, isn't it? So we hope to allow you guys to have that as well.
Yes. Brilliant. So, yeah, and there'll be plenty of posts coming up to remind you as well, coming through with bits and bobs about what to expect. So, shall we move on to Phil's thoughts? Mm-hmm. So, my thoughts this week, and I am going to do my best to not turn this into a rant.
Oh, gosh.
It's positive. It's positive. So this comes up all the time, but I've heard a lot more recently. People just like moaning about the DVSA. It seems to be default. It's like on Facebook all the time. Anytime I hear people talk, it's just always goes to waiting list DVSA. And I get it, because one, it sucks. The waiting lists are awful. You can't get tests. I appreciate you probably don't feel this as hard because you seem to be in the one place in the country you can get some tests.
It's interesting. Funnily enough, I booked a test this morning and it was a 5-month wait list.
Yeah.
Which,
so,
we can get cancellations.
Yeah, whereas we're starting to get to the point where it's really hard to get cancellations, and we're at the point now where you can only book tests on the Monday when they release them each time.
Yeah.
And I know people have been in that situation for a long time. So I do really get it. It sucks and it's difficult, but what you can do about it? Like it is what it is. And you could go and have a little moan about it. Great, might make you feel a bit better. You could go and write a Facebook post about it and get another 100 ADIs to come and comment to make you feel better because everybody hates it. And yeah, it might make you feel a little bit better, but it ain't gonna change it. It's still gonna be exactly the same situation when you're finished moaning. So, what can you do about it? That is the thing. You can't change that. So, what can you do? Like, control the controllables, deal with what you can do, deal with the situation that we live in, not the one that we want to live in. Yes, absolutely. Don't just ignore it and go, well, it is what it is. I'm going to just leave it. Because if you can change it or you can help influence change it, then do that. That's great. So, for example, let's talk about what you could do to maybe help make change, and then we'll talk about what you can do while there isn't change and if change never happens. So, what could you do to make change? Well, writing a Facebook post isn't going to change anything other than get 100 likes and posts and comments, which, to be fair, might make you feel better. You could write to your MP, you could write to the DVSA, both of which would, in my opinion, have very little impact, but at least you would feel like you're doing something. And when I say have very little impact, I do mean very little impact, but actually, if there was 40,000 driving instructors making a little impact, it would make a bigger impact. So I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying don't expect them to come back and go, oh yeah, you're right. This is I did not know, and then change it. Because it's not going to change overnight. So, but actually, if 40,000 instructors wrote to the MP, I think that would make a difference. And more importantly, actually, get your pupils to write. Like if they're having a tough time, if they can't get a job, if they can't take their loved ones to work or whatever, or if they've got a story, like get them to write to the MP, like help them write the letter. Because actually, I think that would have more of an impact. Because I think one is a driving instructor moaning about their job. The other one is actually moaning about the government not providing the service that they say they will. And I think that is more important. And I think that will have more of an impact. And again, that is your MP's constituents, something like that.
Constituents.
That's the one. Minions. And actually, they do care about that sort of stuff, because if you're upset about that, maybe you're not going to vote for them, and that does change their mind. So, yeah, get your pupils to write if they've got that story. If they're really struggling, if it's affecting their life, then get your pupils to write. Because if we go from that 40,000, I don't know how many tests there are a year, but like if every one of those people wrote to their MP, that would make a difference. Mm-hmm. So I do, like I said, I agree. It doesn't make a lot of difference, but a lot of little ones will make a big difference. So actually, if you can encourage people, that's great. However, while we're waiting for, so Vicky has just said that her MP shared the letter with the Minister of Transport. As you say, might not do anything. And again, I think it's drip feeding it. I think if this constantly is happening, so the way I see it is the DVSA can't do anything. If they could, they would have, because they're going to lose their jobs for not doing it. So if they could, they would have done something. It has to be done at a government level and therefore a minister level. And I think even if you look at the minister level, like a Minister of Transport, if they're going like, right, oh, we've got this big problem, and the government are turning around and going, yeah, have you seen what Donald Trump's doing? Have you seen Ukraine? Like, we've got bigger priorities. Yeah, don't expect it all to change suddenly. So what can we do while we're waiting for it to change? You could work the system. So could you become the driving instructor that helps people get their tests? How? I don't know, but work it out. So I think you could do. You could employ someone. So employ someone to go hunting for tests for you. Now work out how much that costs and then charge your pupils a fee for being the person. And I don't mean like ridiculously ripping them off like some of these companies are doing, but a nominal, like a fee that's worth paying someone to do that. And you become the instructor that's helping your pupils out. Now that's going to benefit you long term because you're going to have more pupils. You're going to have somebody helping you out. So could this be your way into having someone sort admin for you? Maybe like a virtual assistant or something like that. So that's just one idea, like a work your way. Make it work for you rather than against you. Can you manage it? So, for example, actually, I had a pupil today. Sorry, not today. Last week, where she passed her theory test, flying colours, 100%. Well impressed. And I said to her, and she's struggling. Like, so her first 10 hours have been a struggle. And I said to her, you know what? I think we should put your driving test. And she looked at me like I'd gone absolutely bonkers. But it gets her on the system. And okay, if we're 2 months out, we can move it if she's still not made any progress. But actually, if she makes progress and she gets through it, then she'll probably be ready for that test date. So it's sort of like change the way you work, basically. Like if the system is this, then change the way you work to make sure your pupils are getting tests well before they're ready. And then manage it as you go forward. Maybe put in some dates that you're going to reassess that test date, because what you don't want to be doing is getting to 10 days before and going, actually, you're not ready. Let's move it back 5 months. What you want to be doing is 2 months before going, you know what, we've not quite hit those markers that we wanted to. Shall we move it back a couple of months? Or a month or whatever. So it's sort of manage to like realize this is the system we have right now, and then work around it. Spread the hours out, maybe more pupils, but less, like every other week. Encourage them to do private practice. I think actually there's a huge benefit to all of this in the fact that it is not necessarily actually happening, but the potential for pupils to actually get more hours under their belt. Now, maybe not with us, because the money is still a constraint. And so pupils might look at that test date miles away and go, well, actually, I'm not paying for 2 hours a week until then. But maybe they're doing 2 hours every other week. Maybe they're coming back to you a couple of lessons a month or whatever. And they're doing private practice in between. They're still getting hours on the road. Like, it might not be as good as a driving lesson, but they get in hours under their belt. They're becoming a safer, better driver before they've been let loose. It's almost like an enforced graduated license, where they're being enforced to sort of kind of drive with someone else supervising them, and probably not going out at night with their mates. So I think that there are benefits to kind of see it. It's just like looking at it and going, how can I make this work for me? How can I change what I'm doing, rather than just moan about the fact there's a big old problem that realistically just isn't going to change anytime soon. So we've got to work with it. I'm done now, by the
way. Yeah, I think so as well. I sometimes think this is the benefit of being part of a larger organization, because you have that ability to swap tests. Some of you will have a local association, some of you will be part of a school, some of you will be part of WhatsApp groups. And I do exactly like you do. You know, I book, as soon as they've passed their theory, I book their test way ahead, with the understanding that it will absolutely be moved. And what's really nice about that is often, depending on the situation as well, they might not even still be ready, but if finances permits and time permits as well, sometimes we do little mini intensives towards the end as well, just to kind of get them across the line. And I think what's really crucial in that instance is the transparency, and we say it all the time, but you know, I will often speak to the person who is having the lessons, but the person who's paying the bills, and we'll just chat through where they're at. I've had 2 instances recently where both pupils haven't been ready, and we talked it through and said, look, do you want to delete it, or would you like to up the amount of lessons that you have, with the view, and this is really, really important, because sometimes I think if you do this, you then feel some kind of certain obligation. So I always put this in writing. If we increase the intensity of your lessons, then the massive caveat is we will be making the choice not to go to test, or to go to test very close to that test date, because it's harder to benchmark when they're having lessons every other day, and they have to understand that. Now, I know that doesn't necessarily add to the whole no-shows thing, so wherever possible, try and exchange it. But this is the situation we're in now with the 10 days notice, and I genuinely think it's going to increase no-shows, because since that's happened, I've had 2 people say, I would like to do it, but I'm willing to put the effort in. And my response is, okay, fair enough, I can do it, but on the understanding, you won't be going to test if you are not at a safe standard. And then our hands are tied. So I think it's important that that's something to explore with them as well.
Yeah, I think personally, I think you're right. I think it will increase no shows, but I don't think it should, because I just don't think people should be having that conversation anywhere near 10 days.
I think it's when they go to the intensive. Yeah. So when you think about, the pupil, about 4, 5, 6 weeks out, you're like, nope, not quite ready. And you have that conversation. Perfect example, I've had a pupil, she's at school, but now she's off for 2 weeks, and she has had an extra 12 hours in the space of about 8 days. So actually the discussion was around getting her ready. She will go to test on Wednesday, so fingers crossed. Although I never like putting it live on here because it's often not a good thing.
I've noticed a couple of the comments saying that they don't book their test, which is absolutely fine and valid, because I think it's an extra hassle. Absolutely. It is something I've always offered for, well, not always, but for a long time offered to pupils. But this is what I'm saying. It's like there is no right answer for anyone. So absolutely, you can, like, if you're an instructor that's like really stressing about getting your pupils' tests, then just stop booking their tests. Just teach them to drive and let them take responsibility. That's fine. I don't think it's as good a service, but if it's stressing you out and it's like ruining your life, then stop doing it. But I think the other side is there an opportunity here to be that instructor that goes, you know what, it's really difficult to get tests right now. It's really hard. I can help. And this is where I think maybe there is a caveat. I think you should charge for that service, because it is more stressful. You are putting in more time. So you're charging that for by having a premium driving lesson price. I don't mean like more than, I just mean you've upped your lesson prices. I don't mean like you have one price for some people, although that's nothing wrong with that either. But if you're offering a different service, then charge a different price. But absolutely, if you're going, right, this is all the things that I offer, then therefore I'm going to charge this much money, and that kind of covers you for that extra work of doing the test booking, or charge a test booking fee, like saying this is how much I charge. I will manage your test for you. I'll take the stress away. I have ways of swapping tests, either through driving instructors or through your own sort of kind of bank of tests, which might make cancellations more likely, but it's going to cost you this much. I don't know pupils, certainly in the current climate, that would turn away from that. And it's just about like finding how, like, I think remembering we run businesses and going, and I guarantee that in other businesses, if they had a problem that they couldn't change, they wouldn't just sit around and moan about it. They would go, what do we do to work around this? Or what do we do to make this work for us? And that's what we need to be doing, is thinking like businesses and going, how can we make this work for us?
It's always interesting, because when I speak to you, I always think I don't book tests for my pupils. It's not something that I particularly want to offer. However, the infamous Debbie, I have booked hers for her, and she's got a 6-week payment plan. £10 a week. So, but it's just the circumstances that we're presented with. I've also, because there's a psychology there, she doesn't actually know when it is. So I have full permission, and I've told her to start taking her driving license to every lesson, so she doesn't actually know when our test is or when it's going to be.
I'm loving waiting to see how this goes. So I've heard this as advice before. I've even probably suggested it to people. Never done it. But I would love to see how it goes.
Let's see. Now, don't get me wrong. I just don't know.
You know what you need to do though? You need to do some like dummy runs.
Yes.
Where you pick her up and you start driving to the test centre.
Yeah.
But even get to the test centre, but obviously don't go in and get in the way. But then obviously don't go into the test. Just kind of ask her then, like, how did it start feeling as we're getting closer to the test, and get that experience. Yeah. I'm loving to see how that plays out.
Let's see.
Right, can we move on to Diana digs deeper?
Yes.
Twice, apparently.
Twice. Okay, so one is very, very quick. And so, speaking to somebody today, or a couple of days ago, and we were looking at judgment on roundabouts. And he missed a good few opportunities because of the blockers that were there. He just wasn't able to recognise that. And when we pulled over and I asked for his analysis, he said to me, I missed a few opportunities, because of the blockers, but I know what I can do now. And then he said to me, why do you call it blockers? Now, I could have said to him, and I think this is gold, right? It's not even mine, it's his gold. It's not me being modest or big-headed. He said, why do you call it blockers? Now, I could have said, because they block the traffic from coming out, so therefore you can get your gap. But I didn't. What I said was, what do you think they should be called? And he said, wait for it, and I bloomin' loved this, gap makers. Well, I was like, yes, that is exactly what they should be called. This is your gap maker. Yes, it works. So it works for him. I can see it working for others with the conversation. So I was very excited by that. And I thought, that could have been such a missed opportunity if I had just said, it's because they block the cars. But I said, well, what do you think they should be called? So, yeah.
It's interesting. I quite like that. I do like the idea of gap makers. Yeah,
I loved it.
Might be a bit long to say on the move, but
gap makers, blockers, it's much of a muchness.
Me and my pupil today was calling them saviours.
Ooh, I like it.
They were here to save us.
Like it. We also had, and this was so cheesy, but it just came out of my mouth the other day when he said, I didn't do this and I didn't do this, and and this worked out well. And I said, well, it's not about perfection, it's about reflection. And then as it came out, I went, oh my gosh, that was brilliant. And that ended up being his top tip to the next person, reflection, not perfection. So that was good. Okay, so my actual Diana Digs Deeper was with the same pupil, actually. And we're struggling a little bit with the concept of roundabout. So we did an awful lot of work on that, and he kind of has sort of very black and white thinking. So I was interested to see how he would take to the double mini roundabout that we have in our local area. So rather than show him it and show him the layout, or even just sort of kind of experiment with it, I said to him, I want you to imagine that you're in charge of the flow of the traffic around this area, and it's quite a busy area. What would you put to manage this traffic? If you were in charge of all the roads, what would you do? And bless his heart, he was like, well, I'd put traffic lights in. That was his go-to, and I said, okay. And we explored it, and I said, anything else for the traffic lights, any additional amendments, have a look at it. And we watched the traffic, and he went, well, hang on a minute, actually it's double many roundabouts, so there was about 6 exits, that they could come from. And I said, well, what are the advantages and the disadvantages of the traffic lights? So we went through that, and he said, oh, actually, it's quite tight there and there's parked cars, so I don't think that would work out. So we walked through it. I said, so what about a roundabout? Is that something that would be beneficial? And he was like, yeah, why didn't they put just one roundabout on? I went, walk that through for me. Where would they come from? What impact would that have if it was one big space? And then we sort of delved down that road, and I said to him, okay, now I want you to imagine that you're the person that has done all the research, all the analysis, and you have come up with the double roundabout as the best possible option. Because, like you said, control the controllable. We don't have the opportunity to put the traffic lights or the lights or the filter lanes, etc. So I said, you're the person that after all your years of analysis have decided that this is the right thing for this junction at this time. How do you sell the benefits of this to the road safety teams? And he was like, it was nice because he was like, huh. And you could see how, and we got a bird's eye view. We were like sat positioned at the 2 double roundabouts. And he was saying to me, okay, so it's going to make it safer because people will be able to see clearly from all of the exits. I said, okay. I said, why is it not a traffic light? Because that's what the road safety teams will say to you. He said, well, have you seen the amount of traffic on this road? So it's going to keep the flow of traffic moving. And that in turn, it was lovely, that in turn is going to help people be more aware of how busy that traffic is. So, they'll be cautious crossing around it. I'm just like, okay, fair enough. Anything else? So we explored that. And once we'd explored all of those benefits, I said, okay, what about the crank that's in the road safety team that says this isn't going to work? What about all the double mini roundabout together? What are the disadvantages? And he said to me, so I got him to list any of the disadvantages and said, right, but what is your objective then? How are you going to overcome that? What is it? Is it the advantages or the disadvantages that are higher in that case? And bear in mind, you're getting a big bonus if this pans out. So we were chatting about it. And then I said to him, okay, now you've got past the road safety teams. Nobody has ever seen a double mini roundabout in their lives. How do you explain this to the public that have got to use them? And I had him explain the benefits to them as road users and not just the road safety teams. I had him explain to them the benefits to them. They're going to get home quicker. They're not going to be stuck at red lights. These were his ideas, that we were coming out with. He also said that because they're small mini roundabouts, you would be able to see where people were coming from in advance of getting to them. So you could make your decisions more quickly, so you would get home quicker. He said that because there was 2 lanes on one of the approaches, it was very clear from a position point of view that one lane was coming all the way round across you, the other lane was going off to the left. He even, and this was quite cute, and he went, and because they're mini roundabouts, I don't even need to signal off them. So I was like, yeah, nice. And this is a guy that is not a fan of roundabouts. Everything was oh, you're going to take me to that disaster roundabout, you're going to take me to this place, you're going to take me to that it was, and we've been really on it with his language in terms of, let's not talk about dying and death and crashes and stuff like that. So it just worked beautifully. And it probably did take us about, I'd say 15-20 minutes at the side of the road, but it was such a lovely moment. And because he had been responsible for designing the roundabout in theory, he nailed it. He absolutely nailed it, because we exploited it to within an inch of its life, and then he went off and practiced it. There was a moment where sort of muscle memory started to signal off on the first roundabout. And I went, well, that didn't work. He kind of reflected on it, and we just chatted about it afterwards. So it was a really lovely moment. And I could have just talked to him about the basics of the mini roundabouts, but it was a nice opportunity for him to explore why they'd even put it there in the first place.
I like that. I really like that. I think there were several moments in there I was like, yeah, that's a good question. I like that. Yeah, it's really interesting. I think you could take that. If that works with him, I would like utilize that, because again, it's like learning styles, isn't it? And you've found a way for him to connect with how the road works and make it make sense for him. I would take that to every roundabout you have. Like, even maybe set it as homework. Like, next week we're going to do ... roundabout. I want you to do your research and hit me with your presentation when you get here.
I love that.
And then go do the roundabout. It's all about, yeah. And I love how you went, because I like the idea, I like the concept of like getting like, why does it work? And why does it make sense? I get that. But then I would still, and when you were saying that, I was thinking, oh, but I want him to know how to use it, because it's one thing having this theory of like, oh, these make sense, but actually they need to make sense as a driver as well. But then you turned it around and said, well, how do you sell it to the general public? And that's the how you use it. Part. Yeah, no, I really like that. It's really good. I might try that.
Honestly, it was brilliant, and I've done it with other things in the past.
Did you name the roundabout after him? Because I feel like that should now be called his roundabout. Like, this is the ... roundabout now forever.
Yeah, maybe that's a good idea. Will's
like
roundabout.
even for future pupils. What did you say? Is that Will? Was it?
Will, yeah.
Yeah. So even future pupils who would just be like, "Oh, we're approaching Will's roundabout," they're like, "What?"
Yeah, no, it was good. It was really nice, and it was very exciting. I had such a lovely lesson with him today.
Sounded like a good lesson. Did you record it?
Of course I didn't.
That would be really...
I need to my flipping it wouldn't be a beneficial lesson to record for a couple of reasons. He doesn't like talking on the move. He does it. He does all of the talking, and it's fantastic. And then we pull over, have an analysis, and then we go off and practice. So it's not. I'm mostly sat there in silence, managing the situation, but quite frankly, mostly in silence. And he's doing all the work, and it's lovely. It's great, actually, especially because he's having 3-hour lessons. But it wouldn't be a beneficial lesson to record.
It's interesting, because that goes back to our Zoom last week of what's the perfect lesson, and that's the perfect lesson for him. And that's the key. It's like it's what works for the pupil, and finding that out is probably the hard bet.
He was so open though. But anyway, right, yes, it's not Diana's breakdown of driving lessons. So
I like it. It was good. Shall we move on to? We haven't really had any. Oh, we have had. Susan's had a comment. Did you want to read that one out? Because I think it relates quite nicely to what you were talking about. Can you see it or not?
Yeah. My pupil today called potential hazards, yellow hazards, and actual hazards, and red hazards. Lovely. I've played a similar game to this. I said, this is brilliant, but why did he choose those colours? He said it was because of the hazard perception test on the theory test. Fantastic. Yeah. And what I love about that, Susan, is the fact it's the pupil that has come up with that. There's a lovely game that I will play, which is the traffic light game. Very similar. When we look at what's going on around the road, we'll have green hazards as such, and these are things that shouldn't affect our decision to slow, stop, or move over. Amber hazards or yellow hazards are things that might cause us to slow, stop, or move over, and red hazards are things that will absolutely cause us to slow, stop, or move over. And that's a fun little game that I play with. But it sounds like your pupil's way ahead, because I only came up with that this year. So that's fantastic. Well done, him. Any other questions? How do you help people who second guess themselves on a driving test?
How do you help people who second guess themselves on a driving test? Tell them not to. So I don't know. Part of me wants to say here, if they are second guessing it, did they really get it in the first place? Like, do they really own that learning? Or are they trying to remember what they were taught, and then they go into this sort of like, I think it's this, but it could be this, and actually I'm going to do this. And it's frustrating. I get it, because the pressure, you can talk about the pressure of the test will make you do stupid things, but it rarely makes them do stupid stuff that they can do like really well. Sometimes it does. Like sometimes their mind goes and they go, and that's completely different story. That's like them, their mind going into like fuzziness and not working, and they go through a red light that they saw and just went, yeah, I thought red was green. I don't know. My mind's just got them. And so those ones, that's a different story. That's dealing with stress techniques and breathing and getting them to talk themselves through it, getting them to stay conscious, as in like not passing out, but talking about what's going on the road. And that will help them stay in the zone and not let those thoughts and feelings run away from them and the stress sort of kind of overwhelm them on the test. But if it's because they're coming, I'm trying to think of an example. I'll tell you what, really good example, because the examiner ruined it for my pupil. So my pupil was in the right-hand lane all around on a road, because on this road, it's such a weird road that you can, so they were in the left-hand lane, but the signposts say use the right-hand lane. However, all of the local traffic know that if you stay in the left lane, when you come around the corner, that lane splits and then you become the left lane on your new road. So everyone does it. It's perfectly acceptable. It's the right way to do it, really. But the signposts, and we have spoken to the council why the signposts don't match and marry up to the road markings. They have said it's a traffic flow thing. They want tourist traffic in the right-hand lane because it then sort of eases the flow of traffic. Fair enough, but it also causes this scenario where people go around the corner and two sets of people want the same lane, and it's only a white line separating them. So the pupil's doing the right thing. The examiner said to them, trying to be helpful, to be fair, because obviously there's a signpost telling him to get in the right-hand lane for work to do an hour where he was heading. Says to him, it's okay, you can use either lane here. But the pupil's already in the correct lane. So the pupil's like going, holy crap, he said something to me, I must change. And then changed into the right-hand lane. Not wrong, can still use that lane. But the problem was he then got stuck in that lane, and then people undertaking him, and he ended up failing his test for being in the right-hand lane. But that is a pupil that I've had to test who kind of knew what he was doing, but maybe didn't have enough understanding. Maybe didn't, like, I've just explained it to you. I don't think he would have been able to explain it like that to you. And so that means that the second there's a little bit of doubt, everyone else is going in that lane, the examiner said something, they start second guessing themselves, and that's when they do the wrong thing. Whereas actually, if he really owned that information, like if that examiner said that to me, I'm not changing lanes because I get it and I own that information and I know I'm right. So I wouldn't change lanes. And I think sometimes are we using the stress of the test as a reason for them to say, oh, well, the stress of the test made them second guess themselves, or did they not really get it? Like, I tell you what, really is the conversation you just had with your pupil. Like, if something came up on mini roundabouts, he's not going to second gets himself now.
No.
Because he's explained it and like taught it to someone. And I think that's where we need to be getting our pupils to, so that they aren't trying to remember information. They just know it because they understand it. And those are the conversations you have to have with your pupils to get that, so they understand it. Like, I did a whole video the other day, and I'm really going to be careful not to go into this rant, on driving instructor phrases. And this is one of the reasons why I don't like them, because left is best would have been a good example for that. Like, no, I absolutely never taught my pupil that. But if that's all I ever did was, oh, left is best, they're remembering left is best. They're not understanding why they should be there. And then understanding why they should be there helps them work out the exceptions. So I think that's my answer, is get them to know it, not remember it.
Can I add to that slightly?
Might as well. Could be for some reason.
Oh, you are lucky you live in Devon, boy. Right, anyway. The other thing that I would be tempted to do is get them to do the wrong thing safely, or the wrong thing regularly. So that roundabout's the perfect example. I would have the pupil, imagine you're new to this area and you're following the road signs. What is that sign telling you to do? Okay, so where are you wanting, where does it want you to end up? Okay, let's do that. Let's follow that guidance and tell me what makes sense. You know, let's explore it from both angles. Why do you think the council have put that sign there? You know, and it's a bit like you said, explore it. And a really nice way of doing that as well is, you know, on roundabouts, getting them to go round or going in the wrong direction. And I can be guilty of this as well sometimes, where I'll correct them to stay in the correct lane or something like that. But in reality, I should almost explore them going the wrong way safely, because that isn't a big deal. It's the safest thing, and it reinforces that, rather than me saying, oh no, it's this one. So again, catch yourself if you're making those little connections. And the other thing that I think can sometimes sort of bite us on the test is our little mini affirmations that we do. And it's when the pupil will say, and I've got my gap, and it's that lilt at the top of at the end of the sentence, and you just say, that is the thing they don't have in their test. And I caught myself doing it today, and it was fantastic, because luckily I'd had the conversation with the pupil, and I said, I'm noticing that every time you're asking me a question, I am saying, it's the gentleman that talks all the time. So I feel like I need to earn my money. So, you know, like I'm going, And I luckily, and it was really interesting, I said to him, I'm going to stop doing that. Not to be horrible, but have you make your own choices. And we turned round, and it was really funny, because he was about to turn right and he went, I have my gap like this, and I went like this. I did this noise, and then he went, oh, I don't have my gap. And I said, okay, do what you think is safe, right? Because it was okay, it was a right turn, it was an approaching, we were all okay, so that was fine. And he hedged his bets, and he went, I do have my gap, and he went, and then, you know, 5 minutes later we had to pull over because we were coming in, and I said to him, I said, that was a perfect example actually of why I need to stop that. I said, what were you thinking? I said, because I made that noise again. I said to him, because I said I wasn't going to do it, and then when you asked me the question, I didn't want to be rude, and then when I caught myself, I made this stupid weird noise that made you doubt your decision. There was nothing wrong with it. And he was like, you're right. I said, well, I know. You know, but it was lovely. It was a lovely moment, and it just reinforced the point as to why I was taking that security blanket away. I did explore with him. I said to him, what do you think I would do if it was the wrong choice? He went, you'd stop me or speak up. And I said, exactly. I said, so, you know, whilst you're in this environment, often I'll let you explore and experiment. I said, because we've built a trust, but it's never without assumption. I will always step in. I'll always have your back. So it was a really nice.
So I would be careful with that a little bit. Not absolutely step in because you don't want to crash.
Yeah, of course.
But one of the things that I've had pupils do this where I've gone, I'm not going to answer your questions because you need to start taking responsibility, and all I ever say is yes, because your questions are always leading towards the correct answer, and so I'm just confirming. So we don't need that. You can just do it. But what can sometimes happen is they learn that if they say the right thing, you stay quiet, and if they say the wrong thing, you jump in. So actually, in a way, what you've got to do is get them to stop asking the questions, because if they ask the question, they get their answer realistically, because they know that if they said, like, for example, like you made weird noises, but if he'd have been wrong, if he'd have gone, oh, I think I've got a gap here, and you hadn't, you'd have been like, no, and jumped in, because you'd have tried to stop the scenario. But realistically, we need him to not ask the question. We need him to kind of just make the decision, and you'll jump in regardless, like, if he gets it wrong. Again, you don't want them just trying that out. Like, I'm just going to go down and stop me if I've screwed this up. So it's trying to get them to say that. And I remember actually Kev Field talking about this, and I remember doing it with my daughter as well, is this, and I think I've talked about it either on the podcast or on a live, like really truly getting them to drive independently. And this is what we're kind of talking about, is those, but you've got to set the rules, because it's suddenly different. It's different to what you've been doing with them. And if Kev found it out teaching his son, where they were driving along and he thought that it was all being independent, but he was chucking in questions, like, but at particular moments. And it was actually Tracy sat in the back that recognised it, and it wasn't truly independent. And it's amazing how much those questions help focus the mind. So really setting up a scenario, and I suppose we do this a little bit when we do mocks, but I think it should just be done in a more natural way as well. Setting up scenarios where we're going to go for a drive, and I'm not going to help you unless it gets really bad, and actually sometimes letting it go wrong safely to a certain level.
Yeah, there definitely needs to be caveats all around that. But
yeah, for sure. Safe. We're in a but their parents do it and they get away with it. So I think sometimes you can let things get a bit messy and see how they handle it, because actually they can learn so much from those moments. But it's just depends how messy you're willing to let it go.
Don't let it get too messy.
No, you've got.
Oh God, that's going to be my top tip.
You've got to keep it. You've got to keep it safe. But yeah, really, truly taking that independence out of the scenario. But even taking it to the point where they're planning the route to you, because giving directions is a prompt. At the end of the road, turn left. Oh, okay, mirror signal. It's like a blooming Pavlovian dog. It's like just giving them a treat, and they start their routine. Yes. You take that like trigger out, and they stop doing them routines. Yeah. So like getting them to be like true. That's why they brought independent driving into the test. But this is driving independently, so they're really truly like letting them loose in the car.
Yeah. Safely. No, I agree. I really hope that this has been a help to you guys, and I hope that we have inspired you guys to be the best instructor that you can be. Join us anytime on a Monday as part of our membership, and I'll look forward to catching up with you soon.
Inspire Instructor Training Podcast, where the learning never stops.